All right, we just had the sixth presidential debate for the Democratic Party, the smallest ones, only 7 people. Obviously, we've narrowed it down as they've increased as far as participation, the kind of percentages you have to have from a national perspective and from these first states and these first primary states. So let's go ahead and get started. It began with, of course, a question about impeachment and the political divide. And a lot of candidates kind of answered this question by the Congress had no choice and then calling Trump a bunch of names. Well, that's not really that's not really showing you're going to unite the country by just calling Trump a bunch of names. I'd say Bernie Sanders was the worst, saying he's the most corrupt and worst president in history, and which to me is kind of silly because it's very clear from my perspective that George W. Bush was absolutely the worst president in modern history. The disastrous war in Iraq happened under his watch. The complete financial meltdown happened under his watch. One of the most corrupt bills to ever get passed, a bill that prevented the federal government from negotiating prescription drug prices, that happened under him. So to me, it's no comparison. In fact, when you look at this impeachment, when you look at George W. Bush lying about the weapons of mass destruction and getting us into this war with Iraq where we lost the lives of young soldiers, the lives of the people of Iraq, and destruction of their homes, their infrastructure, the trillions of dollars in rebuilding, the instability that has happened in that region ever since. What a complete disaster. And I would think that would be an impeachable offense. Compare that to Trump's dopey call in Ukraine. It doesn't seem to be like much a comparison. But anyway, when it came to Yang, it seems to me Yang was the only candidate that really can bring the country together because he didn't do a bunch of name calling. He said, look, we got to focus on what got Trump elected. We have to address the issues. We got to present a better vision to the American people, which is really refreshing to hear, and I think the right approach. So I think he won that first question. And then I'm going to talk about some of these issues that came up. There were a couple of pretty good fights. Elizabeth Warren attacked Pete Buttigieg on his millionaire wine bars where he's getting a lot of money from wealthy people. Buttigieg actually defended himself very well, mentioning that Elizabeth Warren has something like 100 times his wealth, and if she got home and decided to give him $2,800, the maximum allowed amount, it wouldn't mean that she was any less of a person or he was somewhat compromised, and also kind of showed her to be a hypocrite because until recently she had these events and made all this money from wealthy people, and then once again has a lot of wealth herself. So I think he did a good job. I think and overall he did a good job. I think he won that one. We saw the continuing attacking of billionaires and in corporations. Of course, Bernie Sanders participated in that, and Tom Steyer, even though he is a billionaire and created this big corporation, a coal business, and then he tries to be this champion of climate change. Attacking the billionaires, and of course Elizabeth Warren's 2 cents per billionaire, we can have free college and all this stuff. But last I checked, there's only something like 604 billionaires in the United States, one of those being Michael Jordan, one of those being Oprah Winfrey, for instance. So it doesn't seem like Elizabeth Warren's 2 cents, just 2 cents, and we can get all this stuff. And Pete Buttigieg actually replied to her and said, we have to make sure we don't make promises that we can't keep because, Elizabeth Warren is just, we'll have free pre through K, every teacher will get a raise, and she just keeps rambling on all this stuff for this 2 cents on wealth, not income, but on wealth, which has failed in other countries. And it does seem to be a whole lot of promises, and I don't know if anybody believes her at this point. Now, I just want to mention a few things about attacking billionaires and corporations. So there's a lot of this, the corporations own Washington, but I wanted to bring up something that happened. When you look at Microsoft Corporation, there was a time where Microsoft wasn't spending a lot of time in lobbying and campaign donations, and the government went after them and sued them. Do you remember that? To divide them up, accusing them of being a monopoly. Since then, Microsoft spends a great deal of amount of money in Washington, and now you don't see those lawsuits. So when you have Washington shaking down corporations that don't spend all this money, to put all the blame on the corporations, really? It just seems, and that's an issue I have with Bernie Sanders, because of course Bernie Sanders, private sector is evil because, in government, there's no corruption, there's no greed, there's no gross mismanagement. So, come on. Yeah, I mean, when things happen in the private sector that are disastrous and there has to be reforms, there has to be more regulation, okay, great. But to say if the government takes over everything, that would be wonderful, because there's never any corruption or greed in the government. To me, that's extremely naive. All right, so let's talk about free college. Pete Buttigieg is for something like 80% free college, but if you're making over $150,000, then you pretty much have to cough up the money yourself. Elizabeth Warren is more free college. Unfortunately, this is something that Andrew Yang has a lot to say on, but he can't really say what needs to be said in 45 seconds or a minute. I've seen him have long conversations talking about college, and there's underlying issues that don't get addressed when you make it free. For example, college has gone up 250% in cost from not that long ago. It certainly hasn't gotten 250% better, a whole bunch of administrative costs. So you don't address that by making it free. 2/3 of the American people don't go to college. So it seems to me that this freedom dividend, $1,000 in the pockets per month of every American citizen 18 and over, and let them decide where to spend it, that's a much better plan than focusing all this money in college, in free college, where the tuition is absolutely out of control and you're just spending so much of the taxpayers' money into this abyss. And then obviously we got to do a whole lot more technical college than we do. There's a whole lot of degrees out there that just aren't valuable in the workplace. So just saying free college does not address the issues, but Yang can't really talk about that like I wish he could, because he has the most intelligent dialogue I've heard regarding the college debate and education and in general. So let's talk about immigration. The Democrats did what they seem to always do on immigration. They conflate illegal immigration and legal immigration, which is really intellectually dishonest. And Yang took part of this as well. Oh, they're anti-immigration. And Yang said, I'm the son of immigrants. Yeah, you're the son of immigrants that are here legally. Tom Steyer said Trump is only interested in white immigrants. He doesn't like non-white immigrants. We accept 1 million legal immigrants a year. Most of them are not white. And I don't know any statistic that says we're starting to receive more from Sweden and less from Mexico and India. So if he has those statistics, then back up your statement. As far as I know, there's nothing to support that and what's going on with our legal immigration. And once again, just not to differentiate the two, like if you're for borders and you're for having a country and you're for controlling the amount of people our infrastructure can handle as far as immigration, and once again, 1 million people a year legally immigrated. If you're against illegal immigration, it doesn't mean you're against legal immigration. Once again, I just think it's dishonest. Something else. Yeah, back to that Warren and Buttigieg. Something that Buttigieg said, which was very effective, and kind of pointing out Elizabeth Warren's hypocrisy and accusing him of getting all this money from wealthy donors. Don't put forward a purity test that you yourself can't win. That was one of the best lines in this debate. And Buttigieg did very well. Biden, this was one of his better debates. He didn't seem to lose it. I didn't hear any big gaffes. The debate was 2.5 hours, and he seemed to make it through. So it's just kind of funny where he's done so poorly that if he just does okay, you like give him give him applause, like he's got some kind of disability. Going to health care, we saw some fireworks between Biden and Bernie because Bernie is for Medicare for all, and Biden is for Medicare for people who want it, keeping the private sector, which is now what some of the other candidates have embraced as well. So there was back and forth on that. Once again, Bernie talking about the corruption in private health care, the greed, all the profits, and there's no doubt that that's true. But at the same time, if you put that in the hands of government, how much is it going to be corruption, greed, mismanagement, bureaucracy? So is that really going to make it better? And is there something that can be done as far as regulation or the tax code that can address the current issues with that private sector? So overall, Andrew Yang did very well. There's something he said in his closing argument I didn't agree with. He said, "America, I know what you're thinking. How am I on stage with these people?" To me, that was kind of weak because anybody like me that's followed Yang since March, April of this year, we know absolutely why he's on stage. He's on stage because of his policies. He's on stage because he's got the best vision and the policies to achieve that vision, this great vision for our country. When you look at the freedom dividend, when you look at democracy dollars, and that issue came up, how do we get more diversity in Washington? Well, democracy dollars that put $100 in the hands of every United States citizens, all the United States citizens, and then giving a much greater field of candidates being able to run rather than Congress, which I think is pretty much all millionaires. It's like you have to be some kind of millionaire to run for Congress. And then, as Yang said, you have to go to the millionaire wine bar and shake the money tree. So that's the best way to deal to give power back to the people is through this democracy dollars, very strong policy once again from Yang. So going back to healthcare, had some fireworks once again from Biden and Bernie. Let's see, just going through candidate Andrew Yang, I thought won. I thought he did the best. I think he's the smartest guy on the stage. Amy Klobuchar, I think all of them had a pretty good night except for Tom Steyer. He just shouldn't be there. He just seems to have it seems to be like an ego trip for him, like Trump threatened his manhood and he's so desperate to show that he's like a bigger man than Trump. It just seems like this personal crusade of his. And once again, he built his industry on coal, and then he claims to be this champion for climate change. So I thought he did the worst. Amy Klobuchar did well. Bernie Sanders did. I mean, he was solid, kept his positions, didn't flip-flop on anything, pretty much came true, was true to himself like he's been through during pretty much all these debates. Joe Biden, once again, did good because he didn't do terrible. So Elizabeth Warren, I think she took some hits from Buttigieg. So I don't know how well she's going to come across to the people. She seemed to interrupt and kept rambling and rambling and rambling. And there's other people on the stage that should have their voice heard. I imagine she's going to be the one that talked the most because they'd start calling another person and said, okay, we want to move on. No. And she just keeps going on and on and on and on, monopolizing. I don't think that's going to rub well with the viewers. Pete Buttigieg did very well. I think he comes out of this pretty good. And then once again, I think Tom Steyer did the worst. So anyway, that's my take on it. Please share yours. This is Jim Wall. Thanks for watching. Until next time.
Cisco, do we have to leave all our good friends now?
Only until next time, Pancho. Adios, amigos.